And welcome back to the Hot Lap. Yes, that is Sergio Perez and Lance Stroll. We'll get into them in a second. But 2 is very much a magic number here on the Hot Lap today. We are looking at the battle of the number 2s. Who is going to have a worse weekend at this rate? Not better, we're looking. Stroll or Perez. Also, in keeping in respect of that number 2, who's going to be the second fastest team in the USA? And also, number 3, Ricciardo Returns. Will he be the number 2 to Max Verstappen in 2024? All of that we're going to get into. But first of all, let's get into a certain Sergio Perez and a certain Lance Stroll, who has, both of them have had absolutely shocking weekends last time out. So Sergio Perez, okay. Let's have a look at Sergio Perez. In Singapore, he had a very average race where he tried to T-bone. Yes, T-bone is his favourite steak by the sounds of it. He tried to T-bone Alex Albon, got a 5-second penalty. Okay, it didn't mean much. In Japan, he was there, T-boning the Haas almost, as well at the hairpin. And in Qatar, he kind of never turned up really with a poor quali. And for both the sprint race and the actual race qualifying outside the top 10, the sprint race in the near end of the top 10, and as a result of that, I don't want to say allowed himself, it was bad luck, but had he qualified better, he wouldn't have crashed out in the sprint race, and he was absolutely nowhere in the race for Qatar, where George Russell, a slower car, let's say, spun at the start with Lewis Hamilton and still beat poor Perez. But let's get into Mr. Lance Stroll. I mean, this man, oh dearie me. He's not done very well either. Essentially being outqualified by Fernando Alonso and then getting very, very upset with his team. I mean, here we go. Here's the stats for both of them. So, championship position, 10th for Lance Stroll, points 47, no victories, no podiums, no pole positions, kind of expected. But when you look at Alonso, let's be honest, he's got quite a few more points than Lance Stroll if you look in the championship. Now, Sergio Perez, you'd think, second in the championship. That's good. Points, 224. Not bad. Victories, 2. Not bad. But the fact that then you realise how far behind he is in arguably the best car in second place, only with 8 podiums, half of that of Max Verstappen with only 2 pole positions, that does not send happy signals at all. I mean, Sergio Perez has even been rumoured to be retiring in Mexico, albeit he said that's a rumour. He's basically come out and said, well, now I've got a contract for next year, he said to Sports Illustrated, and it will be an important to have a good year. I have the motivation to continue, and I want to stay for more years because I believe that I still have a lot to give in Formula One. Fair enough. Do well in the USA, and no one's going to bat an eyelid. Lawrence Stroll has come also to the aid, let's say, to the rescue of his son, believing his son's poor form has been not anything to do with his abilities, but instead of a lot of bad luck. Yes, I think a lot of people will agree. Poor Lance Stroll has had bad luck. However, in terms of his abilities, he is no Fernando Alonso. He's no leader. And you could make an argument that unless something changes very quickly, he is very much not really a contender for the other Aston Martin seat, other than nepotism, the fact that his dad's in charge and no one in the team wants to bat an eyelid at that or make a remark because his dad owns the team. I mean, how awkward can you be? Even Mike Cracker's come out and defended him. I get it. That's really nice. And he, as we mentioned in our Lance Stroll video, he's a solid driver. He's not as bad as people say he is. However, are there better drivers for the Aston Martin team? Yes. So, moving on. Yes, the USA, the Circuit of the Americas in Austin. And, well, I mean, let's get into the teams. We've got McLaren, we've got Mercedes, and we've also got the Ferrari Formula One team. So, when we look at all these wonderful teams, I don't know, I've no idea why the text is so small for Ferrari or McLaren. Is that saying something? I don't know. But anyway, we've got obviously Mercedes in second in that championship with 326 points, no victories, 6 podiums, 1 pole position, and no victories again. I'd like to make that point twice there, clearly. So the same with Ferrari, championship position third, 298 points, victories 1. Podiums, I do believe they do have more podiums than the Mercedes team, which is interesting, isn't it? Pole positions, they have 3, 1 in the sprint race, and they've actually scored a victory. Whereas McLaren, they're currently 5th, but 219 points, no victories. They did have a victory in the sprint race, 7 podiums, 1 more than Mercedes, no pole positions, albeit and no victories, albeit, let's just say, in that sprint race again. Oscar Piastri absolutely scoring in that sprint race, leaving poor Lando Norris a bit upset, really, if you ask me. But I mean, who is going to come out on top with these three wonderful teams? McLaren looks to be fastest at the moment. Who is going to beat McLaren? Can anybody beat that McLaren team? You've got to think, if anyone's got a chance, potentially it's going to be, I think, Mercedes. But McLaren have come out on planetf1.com, a story by Luke Murphy, basically saying, as both championships are wrapped up, there's obviously a lot to play for. And well, this is a clockwise circuit. It notes the Circuit of Americas has proven to be a hit. But owing to the ground, what are the characteristics of it? It's a very fast track. It's got very Silverstone-esque corners. But if you look at that last sector, it's really twisty. And normally, where you'd say Mercedes is not that good in the in the high speed corners compared to McLaren, they've all looked really good at times. And I think it's going to be really hard to predict who is going to come out on top. I mean, it's noted in the article that McLaren have been a very close match for Red Bull at the tracks, which are dominantly medium to high speed corners, and believe that on another day they could have even taken victory at Qatar. COTA, however, might not be as high on the list of form, it says, due to having more low speed corners. And it goes, the Woking team have tried to improve this side of the MCL60 in recent weeks, but any lingering weaknesses might help bring Mercedes and Ferrari into play. And it says those hopeful of a Mercedes fight back will be optimistic about what they're bringing to a modified floor. Now, that modified floor, James Allison has come out and said, it will give them some lap time, but it's more to do with learning about next year's car. And it says, naturally, the team aren't willing to place too much expectation on that update, but any noticeable jump in performance might be a springboard to improve their challenge for that podium. Now, the temperamental nature of their car will once again be on the spotlight, as there's only one practice session in COTA, and it is said to be really bumpy. What other race was bumpy? Singapore was quite bumpy. What team didn't do too well at Singapore? Red Bull. I don't think that's going to be the case here, but you never know. Could Aston Martin also? I mean, they look destined to fall behind McLaren. I don't really think they're in the running for best of the rest, but they could always be a surprise. Remember, we've only got that one practice session, right? So anyone gets that wrong, anyone messes up in that one practice session with a setup, they could be in a lot of trouble. When you think about it, go back to Brazil 2022. One of the reasons why Red Bull really struggled was that one practice session. They completely did not get that setup right. Therefore, they were made extremely vulnerable, and we got one of the best races of the season. So there we go. Fingers crossed. Let's just hope Red Bull don't get the setup right, and we get a really close race. America last year was really close as well, with Lewis Hamilton coming within a handful of laps winning, but that did mean, we did need a Max Verstappen whoops-a-daisy pit stop. So, yeah, there we go. But next up, we've got Daniel Ricciardo. So, he breaks his hand at the Dutch Grand Prix, but he's finally going to be back. Daniel Ricciardo is finally going to be returning to Formula One at the USA Grand Prix. Although, how is he going to do? And this is the big thing. There are still, if I'm absolutely 110% honest, and I think if you guys are as well, there are still question marks. He was okay against Tsunoda, not world class, where I think he's going to be compared to Liam Lawson, isn't he? Straight away, where Liam Lawson looked absolutely amazing. So, and we've got obviously two races. We've got the sprint race and we've got the main race. So, as Ricciardo returns, the only team below Haas in the Constructors' Championship is the AlphaTauri team. And there's a story obviously on Formula1.com. Now, it goes that, as we know, Ricciardo's missed 5 races with that broken hand. He was close in Qatar, but it was decided after a simulator session that that is not going to happen. And Christian Horner has said, of course, he was wanting to come back. He has a contract secured for next year. That was in Japan, both him and Tsunoda for AlphaTauri. And it was a question of, In Liam, we've got such a great sub. It was also a way of giving him another Grand Prix without putting unnecessary pressure and potentially longer-term damage on Daniel. So they didn't want to overstretch it. But Liam Lawson looked average, I guess, at Qatar, which is a good in a way, because he fell below my expectations because the other races we had such high expectations of him. So as it turned out, the conditions that we had in Qatar would have been very testing for Daniel Ricciardo, Horner says. So to have that extra 12 days in the run-up to Austin is the best preparation for him. It's still going to be a major challenge as Ricciardo will have just one practice session to prepare himself, but he's sure to have huge support at one of his favourite venues. It's going to be interesting, isn't it? I think Ricciardo has to at least match Tsunoda. And when I say match Tsunoda, I mean be like within a couple of tenths of him in most of the sessions. And I think that's going to be quite difficult with a broken hand. But, and this is an interesting but, let me go back to a certain Lance Stroll. Yes, he had a broken hand in Bahrain. And he was a legend. He had one of his best races of the year. So there is hope for Daniel Ricciardo. Hopefully his passion and keenness to show us how good he really is shines through. So the three people under the most pressure are Ricciardo coming in, and you've got Perez, and you've also got Lance Stroll. Special mention, though, to the two Mercedes boys that clashed last time out in Qatar at Turn 1 in a car that they said could have potentially at least fought for the win, or they arguably had the speed for that double podium that McLaren ended up getting. So a lot of talking points, honourable mention to that one, going into the United States Grand Prix. Stay tuned here at the Hot Lap. Like and subscribe if you can. If you made it to the end, you are amazing. If you subscribed, you are an F1 champion. Thank you very much. We will speak to you next time.